All right. James and Sae'Von back again. The things that we're going to be going into on this podcast, you might have heard us some other places. You might have heard us blabbing on some stories on Instagram. You might have heard some music. You might have been swinging from vines during the corona pandemic. You might be listening to eloquence in the car. But I promise you this, we are more versatile than just creative means, okay? And so with that, we really want to present you different means, okay? You'll be able to find our personal and our creative social media linked somewhere in this joint. I don't know where you're listening to this from, but we appreciate you here. And today we're really going to dive in to personal responsibility. So I'm going to open up the floor to Sae'Von first, and we're going to kind of unpack what we think is important about personal responsibility, what the hell personal responsibility is, and maybe challenge some of your beliefs a little bit.
A little bit. Heck yeah, man. So when I think about personal responsibility, I think about the understanding or the taking ownership of every facet. And for me, I just like to encompass it down to the word sovereignty. So that's something that some people close to me, they'll hear me say that from time to time. But to be sovereign with your mind, sovereign with your opinion, your views, but also sovereign in the sense that taking ownership, grabbing the steering wheel of your life and saying, you know what, I don't like the route I'm on. I'm gonna switch it up, and this is how I can go about doing that. And I, out the gate, I just want to say that I don't ever want to get off the impression that sovereignty has anything to do with excluding others, or negating collaboration, but more so with always taking ownership over what is going on. So I think a good place to start with that would just be discipline, maybe.
Hold on one second.
Yeah, got my boy drinking some water. Discipline.
You're saying foundationally or fundamentally that personal responsibility starts with discipline. Okay, why do you say that? Discipline. What is discipline? What does that actually mean? Because people love to make up their own definitions for words. It's 2020. You want to just pull up Merriam-Webster or...
Now, I will say this. These companies do update and they do ratify their definitions from time to time, but I do think it's a much better benchmark than guessing what the definition is.
Much better benchmark than us closing our eyes and feeling in the dark.
I'm a wordsmith, so I'll be playing with the words. Sometimes I'll be bending the definitions a little bit. I'm like, So, discipline, noun. Control gained by enforcing obedience or order. Orderly or prescribed conduct or pattern of behavior. Self-control. 2, punishment. 3, training that corrects, molds, or perfects the mental faculties or moral character. 5, a rule of or system of rules governing conduct or activity. A field of study.
Okay. So what in that breakdown of those 5 most clearly reflects what you think is foundational in personal responsibility?
Self-control.
Self-control and emotions? Self-control, what are we talking about here?
So when I think about self-control, I think one of the first places that it does show itself is in emotions, because the type of human beings that we are emotional creatures. A baby, comes out.
I mean, I've never heard anyone fire back on some nonsense out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Something that personally just struck a chord and somebody fell out the chair and had a seizure.
Yeah, I think that if we get better, the better an individual is at regulating their emotions, you're then able to put distance between how something initially may have made you feel and then how you choose to respond, right? So earlier, we talked about failure.
Mm-hmm.
And when most people fail, there is a feeling of dejection or a feeling of failure. And oftentimes that can be an emotion that's sad or disappointed. If you find out that, your girlfriend cheated on you, anger, fury, the anger might be like, damn, I should pull up on homie and I should handle that.
Yeah,
But
we're going to
then,
leave it at that, but
you know,
do what you need to do.
do what you need to do. But that gap being placed between that initial visceral emotion allows you to have time to balance that emotionality out with thought.
Mm-hmm.
And that thought then allows you to make a better decision that comes from a more grounded place, because emotions
More rational,
and
more logical, maybe. Work through a progression, or does that in your estimation is that not what that's rooted in? Logic.
I think that's the thing about the balance, is why that self-control is necessary. The emotions inform us, right? There's a reason that you feel sad about it. There's a reason you feel angry about it. But what is that reason? Feeling that emotion doesn't give you the answer to that. Feeling the emotion clues you in that that's where you need to maybe investigate further. And that further investigation can then lead you to some realizations that you have to pull. You got to ask that why 6 times, right? You got to keep asking. And then eventually you can get that flashlight and realize like, oh, damn, I think that's why. Like that might be the root. And then it gives you a starting place or a gauge of where work should or could be done to improve the scenario, so that in the future, you negate that whole negative emotion, or rather you just move closer towards the outcome that you are seeking.
Mm-hmm. So when you're saying negate that negative emotion, are you talking about more so not ever going to the place where you have that negative emotion, or
No,
recognizing, so not suppression, recognizing that you feel the emotion, but then reacting not in kind, reacting in an intentional manner, because you've thought through potentially why, and also at least understood you need to have self-control, not emotional volatility. You don't need to, someone hits you or someone yells at you, you don't need to reach across the table and smack somebody, right? There's a time and place, right? And the time and place is not just to smack somebody because they said something that offended you, right? So that's to me what I'm hearing from what you're saying. But that's interesting, because when I think about personal responsibility, I think about the 90-10 rule, right? I don't even think it's a rule, but the life being 10% what you do and 90% how you react. So we were talking about earlier how you can go glass half full, glass half empty. You can find silver linings. You can run down that path. But I think what is most important to understand, regardless whether you want to say it's fundamentally, it's foundationally, it's discipline, and then discipline is foundationally self-control, is that personal responsibility over your actions. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what happens to you. You're still responsible for it. Maybe you didn't cause something, but what are the next actions that you take after something happens, right? And what is that framework that you operate in moving forward? Because somebody could do you wrong, and people do people wrong all the time. But do you respond in kind, or do you say, if I wasn't in a scenario, if I didn't put myself in a situation where I was not clear with my own boundaries and what I was okay with and not okay with, would the outcome have been different if this happened the same way? Because even if there was like open communication, you at least took the responsibility on the front end to say, hey, here's the standard, not the expectation. Here's the standard of where I'm at. Here's my standard. Here's the standard we need to uphold. But when someone breaks that, or someone goes and does something that negatively impacts you, which happens all the time, and a lot of times it's not malicious, sometimes it is. Regardless, sometimes we're still emotionally volatile about it. And we respond in some haphazard ways that get us in a lot of scenarios that we probably shouldn't be in. I think that you go down there and you accept responsibility for your standard that you set out, that you communicated or should have. And if you don't, you accept responsibility for what comes of it for you not addressing that. And a lot of times we know we're supposed to, and we know we should address something, but we don't because it doesn't feel good. We're not being authentic to somebody. I don't want anyone to see this side of me. I don't want anyone to see I'm a man. I don't have emotions, That's some nonsense. We do. But personal responsibility, and we're going to go pretty deep on this here.
Yeah, no,
today.
we're going to take it. I mean, this was a starting place, 'cause I think there's some, especially in the time right now, a lot of people, there's some aspects of personal responsibility that are being shunned right now. And because you know how I can be with it, man. I kind of start off oftentimes with a very nebulous aspect. And I brought up the emotion because negative and positive emotion need to be regulated. And I think that, logical thinking and emotion, they're two poles. We need both of them, but it's that balancing act where the self-regulation and the responsibility comes in. So I'm gonna jump for a second here if I might, right? In a time like this, you have a lot of people right now. We're in quarantine too.
Careful.
Now, fuck all that. Flag the keywords.
Careful. Careful.
We are currently at this moment in time in my house. And a lot of motherfuckers is in their own homes. And what we're finding is there are groups of people who are using extra time that has been given to them, and they are charging after the things that they never had the time for, and maybe legitimately didn't have the time.
Or didn't prioritize, didn't make the effort to give energy to something that they wanted to feed for whatever reason.
Yeah, even if they could have been knocking it down chunk by chunk, little piece by little piece, they made a reason why they didn't do it. And they're taking action. Effectively, the way to simplify, we have action takers and we have people who are stagnating. And the idea being that whatever somebody sees for their life or they want for their life, right? So let's say you're in an area where someone tells you you can't cut your lawn on Mondays, right? But you know that if you keep letting the lawn grow crazy, or let's say you literally can't cut that lawn, but you then use that excuse of, well, I can't cut the lawn, so maybe I shouldn't prune the trees. It's like, hold up now. This was about the lawn, not the trees, and getting those two confused. And hopefully y'all can, I have faith in our audience that they can get the analogies, right?
Absolutely. We don't have to explain everything.
Yeah, no. We don't got, hey.
I don't want to disrespect you by explaining everything. I don't want to disrespect anyone that's listening by over-explaining all the analogies that we're making, because if you're listening to this and you're still here, I would say that you have enough of an understanding and are operating intellectually at a level that you want this kind of talk. You want this kind of breakdown. You want to engage down the road with us, or you wouldn't still be here. You would have cut that. You would cut that out. What are y'all talking about? Personal? Oh, I don't want to hear about that. Goodbye.
Yeah. What do you think is one area? Because I do want to focus us in. Because I think that we can look at different areas and how personal responsibility shows up massively. Well, what's an area in your mind that you think our listeners could really benefit from getting, some examples of personal responsibility being upheld or maybe being neglected?
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and piss everyone off from the jump.
Let's do it. That's what I want to do. Let's do it.
Health. Okay.
I like that one.
In large part.
I like that
now,
one.
I'm not naive to the fact that 100% of your health is within your beings. It's within the bounds of your decision making. Okay. There is genetics. There is things that you're predisposed to. There is, markers for things genetically. There's alcohol. There's like a lot of stuff that can go on that can negatively affect your health that you have more of a predisposition to. I am not a medical expert. Neither of us are.
Nope.
We definitely dive into some things and do our own research. Trust but verify.
Trust but verify now.
But health, man, it's interesting in a time like this. I'm going to use this as an example. So my background, for a while I was just a skinny white guy. Okay, I was doing my thing, and that actually was said by Sae'Von. He was like, "Yeah, man, you were an average white guy, like, tall build, skinny guy, but kind of bouncing around." But there was a point where I was like, I looked down, stomach's a little big, and I was working in the bar scene, and I was like, "Yo, it's really time to take responsibility for my own actions." And this health is not really negatively impacting me in my 20s. But what if I let this compound till I'm 50 or 60? Will I even make it to 70 if I do that? So I decided that had to do with a few areas, and we don't going to go super nutritional today. However, what you put in your body, not only your health is not just what you consume and how you move. It has to do with what you let in your mind too.
Absolutely. All your orifices.
right? So we're talking about everything that you take in. But let me hone back into a very tight example in quarantine. We're given all this time. A lot of people are like, this adaptation of, I can go to the gym. Okay, a lot of people, when they have access to a gym, do group classes, right? Orange Theory Fitness, you go CrossFit, you go Barry's Boot Camp, you go Pilates, you go yoga. A lot of people like group classes. And I think there's very big benefit to, basically that social proof and that camaraderie and the collaboration there to be in a class. And it's also more motivating if you don't have it. And if you don't assign an intrinsic value to you working out by yourself, then it's a very good way to get people moving. And if you just enjoy them, that's fine. Some people don't, some people do. But when all this shut down and governors and at the federal level, they said, we're going to let states decide what's going on. And they shut down basically all the gyms in the United States. And mind you, our obesity rate is already pretty high in the world. Even some people that were so into working out before when it was given to them, when they just had to show up. And that was a barrier to entry. Now it's like, I'm going to have 4 margaritas on the nights, on FaceTime calls with my friends, when I would be at happy hour. I'm going to skip a workout because it doesn't matter. Like, we go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You're talking about, I don't need to work out. The world's ending. Yeah. Right? And it's that inside of panic. The world's ending. Oh, man. Now we got murder hornets, too. Yeah. I don't know if anyone knows. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. Watch out. But it's, I kind of poke at that a little bit because we've all had the ability to this point. Again, I understand some people are predisposed to things and, they come into this world with diabetes, with things that they have to adapt. But oftentimes I find that those people that have something that limits them, quote unquote, actually end up in a lot of ways sometimes pushing harder.
Absolutely.
Because there's something that's going to hinder them off the jump.
Yeah.
So my acquaintances, again, we're going to use acquaintances and friends not interchangeably. I'm going to make a big discernment right here. Yeah. Friends are not acquaintances and acquaintances are not friends. We'll go into that later, but please be aware what I mean. When I say acquaintance, someone you're acquainted with, that you do business with, that you do not hang out with frequently, that you do not call when your house is burning down, that you do not call when your kid is sick, when you need someone to go pick up the dog or let the cat out and let him go pee. Like that's not an acquaintance, right? There's people that you call for any of those things, not acquaintances. These people, though, that we get in quarantine and we have a pattern interrupt, right, which can be very beneficial to your life.
Yeah.
But we get in a space where, people are like, wait, this is not what I know. And since I can't go, deadlift 400 pounds in the gym with my buddies, I'm not even going to do air squats. I'm not even going to do deadlifts with a book bag. I'm not going to go walk a mile.
Yeah.
People that are high functioning in physical fitness for your average human being out here while working full-time jobs have just quit. Just stopped. Is there a mental health aspect here? Absolutely. But stepping further away from intentional fitness only worsens that. It's a snowball effect. Right? And I love your thought. I love your thoughts if you want to pick up there. Like, it baffles me. Right? Because I've really gone the other direction. And I will say I've had the privilege in my situation monetarily, right? And as well as my health was already at a good place before this happened. And I have a lot of nuanced understanding of programming. And I actually have just programmed for myself this whole time. And I've been better for it. It's taught me a lot. But I've had equipment that I invested in before, right? And I've had the knowledge that I sought out prior to all this happening. So this was just a little pattern interrupt. I had to get, 48 hours, get my head on straight. And okay, now we're running again. Because I was like, oh no, woe was me. I don't have my gym. I don't have my ropes to climb. I don't have my sleds to push. Like, that's my normal. So I had to switch up. But, and that comes from a place of privilege. Like, I have equipment that I've already invested in. So I want to make that known that I'm not like, oh, everyone's got a barbell and a ton of weights. No. I understand that that's not the case. I'm just saying you still can do something for sure.
Yeah. All of that, I think, can be parsed into part of what you said about pattern interruption. And I think that goes back to emotion, because people like to feel comfortable and they like to feel safe and secure. You mentioned Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and security is on there. And different things make people feel secure. Different things comfort people. We even have a category of food known as comfort food, right? and people also, like emotional eating. You know what I mean? And when people's whole way of life, because most people's whole way of life has been radically altered in one shape or another, it's uncomfortable. How does one really adjust and adapt when your whole way of life has gotten thrown off axis? And so now they're uncomfortable. And so what then is the machination or the route to find a way to feel comfortable in some capacity again? And for some, it's easier to integrate other things or allow other things to stay a part of your routine that add that feeling of comfort versus things that are a little bit more uncomfortable or perhaps could set you up for more failure, right? So take the guy who's used to doing the 400-pound deadlifts, you know what I mean, or the sled pulls or the rope climbs. You take them out of that scenario, that's also because their whole routine switched up. The time that they may have gone, to work out based on when they had to be at their job, based on when they used to go to happy hour consistently. They were really, really, really comfortable with that setup. And then that got changed. And now it's like, oh goodness, what do I do to get back to that feeling of comfort? Because all those other things worked because as a whole, it felt comfortable. And that's why the routine was set in place. So now all we are seeing really are new routines being established. But from my estimation, and partly even from my own experience, but I had to take the time to really stop and just say, okay, what new patterns am I creating? Now, granted, it wasn't as drastic for me because things didn't really change too much for me.
Yeah, you still did. I mean, you still have really, really played the same way that you played before this.
Because the way my life was set up was also a lot different than a lot of people's. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people, they have to go to an office to go to work. They have to commute. They have to do all this. I was already working from home and dabbling in a lot of creative work anyway. But the point still remains that whatever I would see is as people have shifted their routines, whatever immediately allowed them to plug back in comfort is what got locked in. So if people know that, all right, I can't go to that gym, but I can still watch my Netflix, and that's comforting. Mm-hmm. That got locked in. I can't go to the restaurant, but I can still go to the store, and buy some ice cream, or I can do this, that, and the third. And the emotions around what it really feels like to be uncomfortable or to not have it figured out. Because I think the other aspect that we're kind of implying, but it maybe needs to be explicitly, is that no one really knows or knew how long any of this would go on. So it's like you interrupt your pattern or your routine. At first it's, okay, well, this is just a little break for me. I get to take a couple of days off. Then a couple of days turns into a week, and a week turns into 2, and then 2 turns into 8, turns into whatever. And before you know it, the whole routine has been flipped and reestablished. And then that routine is justified by offloading, let's bring it back, personal responsibility. Well, I can't go to the gym because the gym is closed.
Now justification.
So what do? I can't eat any better than this because the grocery stores are out of meat. I can't, talk or connect because we can't see. We have to be distant from each other. And we're just seeing this smaller example of offloading that responsibility because, oh, these are the rules though. And one can then either make a decision to say, okay, well, I can take, so another example. Let's say in certain areas, they start running out of food, right? Food shortage. Well, every man, for the most part, woman, have the ability to grow their own food. Obviously in different scales. If you don't have 100 acres, you're not going to be able to pump out the volume that 100 acres can pump out. But they got little kits there. You can grow mushrooms, you know what I mean? And just bloop, bloop, bloop. And it is what it is. You water it and it's going to grow, right? That's a workaround for that. Someone who's used to going to the gym, you have your whole body. Maybe you weren't a body weight calisthenic dude. Switch that shit on up. You know what I mean? Personal responsibility. You got laid off from your job. Well, you can definitely go collect an unemployment check. 100% you could. You could also learn another skill set, augment your ability so that when all this is switched back around or while this is going on, you are now learning another trade, another tool is now on your belt that you can leverage that could open up more doors for you. And these are all choices the individual has to make, but there has to be a decision at some point of, okay, and you know, a lot of this is down to the emotion. If you're comfortable with, as I know a lot of people, the unemployment check is literally providing them with more money than they had when they worked their job. So it's like the same things that we saw that were going on with a lot of people make the argument why welfare is good or bad or this, that, and third. But it's like the fact is, if somebody does not have to work and can take care of themselves or have what they need to survive without working, are they going to work? You know, so if someone can collect an unemployment check and be good, are they going to look for another opportunity? Are they going to maybe pull the trigger now that their back's a little bit against the wall? Their back isn't against the wall in the same way because of the kind of escape clause that's built in, but that's offloading the responsibility to somebody else. The government's going to take care of me. They got my back. Well, all right, the government has finite money in the, you know, so what happens if they stopped giving that check out? Have you positioned yourself in the time that you've had collecting that check to know that you're still going to be able to do something to take care of you and yours? And there's a lot of ways to do that. You can either make more money or you can reduce the amount of money that you need to be taken care of by growing your own food. All right, well, I don't have a gym membership to pay for anymore. So that's saving me a little bit of money. I'm not spending money on this gas commuting every day. That saves a little bit. Or, oh, well, I have this extra time, so let me get this big ass TV. I got this extra time, so shit, I'm really finna binge watch everything that's in my library, bookmarked on Netflix. Like, these are the personal choices that are in our hands to make regardless of the scenarios that were outside of our control that initiated the change of the pattern.
That's true. And I would even say that us running down the path of looking at personal responsibility and the choices that we have the ability to make, I would say that fundamentally ingrained in personal responsibility is discomfort. If you're not willing to run into the damn storm, to an uncomfortable space, you will lose in the transitions. You will lose when the pattern interrupt comes. You will not sustain your growth nor your norm when stuff out of your control happens, and it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And there's no way to stop that. Personal responsibility doesn't have anything to do with anybody else but you.
Personal.
And I know that should be pretty easily understood because it's literally in the damn name, personal responsibility. But we don't even know what responsibility is, right? We don't even know what responsibility is because responsibility, and we're about to pull up this definition, but responsibility is something that we don't even take when we crash our own damn car. We don't even take when we try to do muscle ups, but we didn't warm up our shoulders and we tear something. We don't even take when we are an asshole to somebody on the street. You know, as we're driving, we cut somebody off. We don't take responsibility of causing a 4-car pileup because we cut somebody off because we weren't paying any attention. We were looking at our phone, driving. So it doesn't surprise me that we're in the situation we're in. It doesn't surprise me that so many people run around with their heads cut off, right? Yeah. Like chickens, run around, don't have any idea what's going on, not operating at any intellectually high level because they didn't have the responsibility when everything was blase.
Yeah.
So why would you have it now? You're just going to default to your systems. That's it. That's all. And we should just close this damn episode right now. That's it. You just literally, that is all. You will default to your systems. And if your systems are shit, then that's what's going to happen.
But maybe we're assholes because what we're talking about is the problem. How does someone go about fixing that? How does someone build personal responsibility? How do they vet if their systems are solid or not? Like we got to provide people with the answers.
Yes. Because
you know
that's pointing out the problem is what everyone does. CNN does that better than we do.
You know,
they don't give you any
response. Hey.
Any response. Fox News, they don't give you any.
You fucking up. Good night.
Yeah. All right. Another day in America. Black versus white. Well, guess what, guys? If you're not seeing this on video, you got a black man and you got a white man.
Amen.
You got some interesting stuff going on here. We'll go into that, and you'll see and you'll understand a little bit more of the nuance of what we're talking about. But The solution. Okay, well, in my mind, the solution is go callous your damn mind. Okay, David Goggins has a great book. It's called Can't Hurt Me. I don't know if you've read it. I've read it 2 or 3 times. It's very interesting. He goes into this place in his own mind, right? Reaching in the cookie jar. Okay, what's the cookie jar?
Yeah, break that down for us, man.
It's all, that cookie jar is all of the things that negatively impacted you, that you beat, okay? You were abused as a kid? That's in your cookie jar. You made it through. If you're an adult, you made it through. You coped somehow. Something that you went through that was uncomfortable and out of your control. The cookie jar, a lot of times, are those things that are out of your control or that you failed at. You know, David Goggins don't come for me because I know this is not exactly what you said in your book, but this is my interpretation of what you're saying. But the way that I personally try to increase my personal responsibility is by callousing my mind. And the fastest way and the most aggressive and in my control way I can do that is to put myself in a situation where I have to see where I'm going to quit. And I do that through physical exercise.
Yeah.
So I intentionally write workouts that like damn near no one with a brain would want to do. Even I. Yesterday we got a workout in but looked at it before we started like, this is going to suck.
Yeah.
This is not going to be fun. We're going to be better for it. Because I want to push myself to the place where I want to quit. And then I want to beat it. And I want to stick it in the cookie jar. For when shit gets hard in life,
Yeah.
I know that I can do that.
Yeah.
Because I've done something. I've done something harder, and I've intentionally put myself, don't have to be uncomfortable. Put myself in an uncomfortable situation. Right? Heart rate's up at 95% of my max heart rate. Sustained. For 3 or 4 minutes. Basically damn near dying. If you're in the medical profession and you're listening to what I'm saying, like, James, you could have had a heart attack. You could have died. Yeah? But guess what? That was the only thing promised when I came out of the damn womb.
Hey. So, from what I'm getting at, or from what I'm hearing, it seems and sounds like the crux of one route, one pretty solid route. Hey, we had a truck outside, man. He busting moves. One solid route to building personal responsibility or systems really comes with challenging oneself. And for everybody listening, this is James' method. Physical fitness is such a unique example because you can very, very much measure a lot of things in the sense of scaling over time, how you're pushing yourself, knowing what was done before versus, it's not subjective. You know what I mean? Unless you want to get into nuance of, well, was it a full rep? Was it a partial? All that shit. But other than that, it's pretty,
sucks.
you know what I'm saying? It's pretty objective how you can measure it. But there are other ways to do that. You know what I mean? For some people, saving your money is going to be callousing your mind. If you don't have that habit built up, if money,
you don't have that discipline.
You know what I'm saying? If it flows through your hands like water and you've never sat down to really take a look at your own ledger to see how much you've made and how much you've wasted and how much you've invested over a time frame, and you're wondering why you're living in poverty, maybe that's where you should start. You know what I mean? And if you're someone who has nothing but failed relationships and poor communication, then maybe you should start with building better relationships and taking on those things that aren't skills at present. And I think for each individual, that's going to be a different priority. You know what I mean? For some, like, you can come in the game, let's say, and you come into a scenario and you were brought in to be the help, right? You were brought in, let's say the bus boy in a restaurant.
The janitor.
The
door guy.
The low rung individual.
You're mopping the floors at the end of the night.
Uh-huh.
You're the one, they need the trash taken out.
You're that person.
Everyone looks to you to do it.
Now, an individual can accept that. That can become the comfort position. That can become the status quo. That can become the pattern by default. But then all it requires is them to make a challenge to themselves of like, damn, I think I could be more than a busboy though. Maybe I could be a server. You know what I mean? And then they go on, they try it, right? And then that works out. And then they can say, damn, well, instead of the server, I think maybe I could be one of the managers. And then they make that leap in. Dang, I ain't never thought I'd be the manager. I started off busboy. Maybe I could be the franchise owner. But it takes asking that question. And I think that most people in this day and age, we fill our time with things that we think are worth our time, even if they're not. And because we do that, we then lack the time to reflect on how our time is spent. And if it is something that we want to continue doing for the rest of our time. I was trying to see how many times I can say time and make it make sense. But if that makes sense to anybody out there, the reality is being busy is not good in its own right. Because if you're just a busy body, and you're just flowing and you're just moving off of all these external things and never taking a moment to say, hold up, I control my life. Hold up, I'm in a dead-end job that I hate. My boss is an asshole and I hate my job. Don't work that job, get a different one. But I'm not qualified. Get a qualification. But the qualifications are expensive. Get the fucking money. Well, there's no way to get the money. Well, find a job that doesn't need the qualification. But it's like at some point there has to be an end to the excuse-making pattern of why something can't happen.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that, because where that takes me is immediately as you're saying that, everything that you said, I could put in the box of sacrifices. And at some point, you have to sacrifice something, or you will sacrifice the goal itself.
Thank you. I was hoping you would say that.
You don't have the ability to have your cake and eat it too, no matter how many times you try, no matter how many relationships you try to juggle. You cannot have it all.
And that's, I think, a really tough pill for people to swallow. And that's why out the gate, I picked self-control. Because self-control is a choice of this and not that and not this. And the self-control usually means that you have to fight your baser instincts. You know, sugar tastes good. Fat tastes good. You put fat and sugar together, damn, that's delicious.
Yeah.
Is it good for you?
Yeah.
That's the self-control.
And what's the sacrifice if you do run down that path?
You know, it's like, hey, if your goal was to be, in your 80s and be in tremendous health, or, you're going to have to sacrifice that bullshit to get there. But if the goal was to eat the bullshit, well, you're going to have to sacrifice your health. And that comes with a balance. So it's not saying you can't ever have the fat and the sugar, but what are your patterns? What is your comfortability? Are you comfortable every day? Sometimes people are like, damn, Sae'Von, so you still vegan? You still plant-based? How do you do it? It's just, so all you eat, so you don't eat no meat, you don't do this. Look now, did I ever say chicken wasn't delicious? I drive by Cane's and I'll be like, motherfucker, goddamn. But that's the sacrifice. For me, because I made that choice.
But you made that conscious choice for what you wanted, for the reasons that you wanted to, and you don't have to explain that to anybody. It's your life, right? But at the end of the day, like, are you making conscious, or are you making happenstance choices? Are you literally like, well, here I am, and I've always done this, so we're always going to do it this way? Are you that guy that
default
literally
network
should
mode?
Be just beep, 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 beep on the assembly line, Mr. Industrial Revolution, right? What school was created for?
Yeah.
The followers, not the leaders.
Yeah, man.
People don't want to look at that.
No.
Right? What does school teach you to do? Follow.
From the Prussian system where it originated, it was designed to make sure people could be more obedient to follow orders and directions. But then you have the dichotomy, the people giving the directions, the people being directed. And for the most part, people get put on autopilot. You go to school and you get taught that you're supposed to go to college. And then you go to college and you're taught that you're supposed to graduate from college and go get you a career. And then you work that same damn job that you might hate, because it makes X amount of dollars. And then you retire when you're 65 and then you sit on your ass till you die. And it's like, well, that doesn't have to be your life. Who gives a damn if all these statistics, no one, and it comes down to, I think as well, people being overly worried about others. And there's a teacher by the name of a really wise guy, metaphysicist, named Sae'Von Bomar. And he made a really good point about how when you factor other people in, you ruin your own equations. And so oftentimes the reason I bring that up is someone can make the example of like, but these people did this, but they go to school and that happened for them. But is that you though? What works for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you. How James calluses his mind doesn't have to be the way you callous your mind.
And just because it worked for him doesn't mean it's actually going to work. So it's not like you have to because they did, or you don't have to, or you shouldn't because they didn't. Mm-hmm. It's a realization that Just like the same diet that you eat, somebody that has something going on inside that eats the same way, it could not be good for them.
Literally. And I've had to explain that to people of like, look, I eat these oats, but boom, 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 or I eat this, but honestly.
If you've got, and I don't know about all this stuff, IBS, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Some things like certain foods, even in a plant-based diet,
irritate things.
Yeah, you're going to get inflammation and stuff.
And it's like, it is what it is. So it's that realization that once again, what is your life and what are you willing to sacrifice?
Yep.
You know what I mean? For what your goal is. And I think a lot of times because people put again, that self-control or that self-responsibility, that's the reason why they feel the need to latch on to things. Like, oh, if I'm going to go this route and I want to improve my health, then the way to do it is a keto diet, or the way to do it is an Atkins diet, or the way to do it is a vegan diet. So then they jump into this other
some radical action, like completely off the norm of what you're at right now. Because listen here, for anyone that wants to go on any diet or any lifestyle change, you need to do what you're willing to do for the rest of your life.
Because if you don't do it, it's not sustainable.
Not on this 20-day, 30-day, hey, I got to lose some weight for spring break. No, That's dumb. That's very dumb. First of all, your body doesn't need to be in flux that much. Second of all, you're going to binge. If you cut out all carbs for the next 30 days and then you come out of nowhere and you start eating carbs while you're at the beach, you're going to balloon up. Male, female, you're going to balloon up. And then you're going to be more frustrated. Right? And we're just talking about regular carbs. We're just talking about you cutting them cold turkey, out, in. If you want to track towards something, I do hope for your sanity that you're willing to do it for the rest of your life. You're talking about lifestyle changes. You're willing to try that with the thought and the intent that it's going to go. And it's something you want to continue to do. Mm-hmm. Because if you're just on some fast shit, you're going to burn out.
And it does start with one step. But I think it's, the point I was getting at was how oftentimes people will then offload their ownership of learning about something and experiencing things for themselves. So instead of them really learning what health means and balance, and just like, someone can still eat meat, it doesn't mean they're an unhealthy person, which a lot of vegans would say. They're like, if you eat any meat at all, that's horrible for you. Like, I have my own thoughts, but at the end of the day, you could also be vegan and eating Oreos all day long. So if someone's not, that's not healthy, and that happens, I think, because people, by and large, are in the default mode network, you know what I'm saying, where they still just want to be told what to do. And so it's like, oh, well, someone told me to do keto. Someone told me to do this, or someone told me to go get this job, or someone told me to get this degree, or someone told me that I should marry her. My mom thinks I should do this. And it's like, what the fuck do you think?
Yeah, because you're the one that has to live with all the regret at the end of the day. You're the one that has to live with the lasting impacts to your body. You're the one that has to live with your mind wondering, should you have ever shot that shot with that girl that turned you down while she was a waitress while you were sitting at her table? You have to take the shots. You have to take the chances on yourself, because your mama ain't going to be here when you're 80. If she had you when she was 40 or 30, she ain't going to be here when you're 80. Show me a 120-year-old person.
Right. Like, not saying y'all ain't out there, but
not
likelihood.
Saying one day somebody listens to this and they're not there. But I'm just saying right now we are in quarantine 2020. Corona Tarzan is swinging.
Yeah.
You have to take responsibility. And if you're not willing to take responsibility, then, fundamentally, what are you doing?
Could you do it for yourself?
Can you expand on that?
Just like that whole personal responsibility. Mm-hmm. Could you do it for yourself? Or someone else having to initiate it. Whatever the it is.
Yeah.
Because obviously when we're talking about this whole thing of responsibility, it applies to so many different realms. If you have a goal of being a great father, then you have to take personal responsibility for that. You can't hope that, or rather, if you want to raise your child, hope your child comes up a certain way, you can't put that responsibility on the mother. You can't put that responsibility on their friends. Like, you can only control how you as a father interact, right? You want to be a good partner to your girlfriend or to your boyfriend. You can't control what they do. You can only control what you do, right?
But even with that, the personal responsibility, you have to also let go of the things out of your control. Because otherwise, it'll drive you crazy. Like, you can raise your son or try to influence a friend or a family member to be a certain way. Mm-hmm. And you could have the best intentions.
Best.
And you could do your damnedest to see that through. But if they themselves want to take a different path,
Their own personal responsibility.
you cannot take the responsibility for their action. Their action that is quite the antithesis of quite the opposite of what you were trying to instill. Like that's not, if you're going to take responsibility, that is like, that's so interesting because you can go into all kinds of topics about this. You can't accept responsibility for someone else's actions. You should absolutely not push your responsibility or shift or be shifty with your responsibility of your own actions. You can't let that go and you can't push it on anybody else. But just the same, if you worry about everybody else's actions and you don't worry about your response or your reaction, then you're not going to get anywhere. Emotional volatility is going to take you over and you're going to come up with excuses that are going to, these same things that could motivate you, you're going to flip on its head and be justifications for inaction.
I think that's what I know for myself has happened in the past. And I do my damnedest to keep that guard up for when I'm making that realization of like, damn, is this really boom, 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 boom? Am I being fucking lazy right now? Is this really boom, boom, boom? Am I
self-audit.
But it's a skill that has to get cultivated over time. And I think even like those swings, something that I heard some years ago that I really liked was don't make any decision when you're emotional.
In emotion? Like don't make any decision.
Whether you're happy or sad, whether you're angry or in love. Like just don't make anything from that polarity, because just like somebody can be overjoyed in that moment and then commit to something that was a terrible thing to commit to because in that moment they were on the high. Or they give up on something like, man, I walked off of the football team in freshman year because, it was like this compounding. It was definitely something I was considering, but then on the day, it was a horrible day for me, right? And then on that day, I made that decision. So it's like, would I have made the same decision if I was at a baseline level? I hope I wouldn't have, but I made that decision from an emotional standpoint, just like I made commitments to things when I was on a emotional high about it. And it's like at the end of the day, I had to self-regulate better to recognize like, I'm feeling a lot of serotonin right now. I'm feeling a lot of dopamine right now. So it's making me overly optimistic, even though all of the facts are showing me this, that, and the third. Or, you know what, I'm being a little bit negative and a little bit, my outlook is kind of bullshit right now because my head hurts and and we taking these L's and I'm really just, I'm mixing that with this and the decisions that are being made aren't really being made from a grounded place because it's still factoring in these other things that aren't nearly as centered, and it can be a tricky thing, the self-regulation, particularly, because I think it ties into your network. Because if somebody is sitting in a group of a bunch of people who don't take any accountability or responsibility for what they're going on, then it becomes the trend, it becomes the vibe, it becomes the wave of just, oh yeah, man, life happens, man. It's not meant to be, like what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
You guys, Agent Smith has been meddling. And it would have been very easy to just say, you know what, man, fuck it, bro, man, this happened, and that happened. I don't know, man, I just maybe we're forcing it, Or then other times people just, oh man, well, what's going to happen is going to happen. And I'm not saying that what's going to happen isn't going to be what happens, because those are the things that are outside of your fucking control. But are you using it as an excuse, or do you then take the responsibility, turn that joint into a tool for you, an asset, and let it be jet fuel towards whatever your desired outcome and intention is? But it is something that takes skill. And another thing I want to throw in there is a very actionable step: journaling. And the reason that journaling is important is because
I don't journal. I'll be straight up honest with y'all at all. I think that there's a lot of value in it, and I want Sae'Von to keep going, but I'm exposed myself. I don't journal. I don't write down a damn thing. Go ahead.
But you've also been able to develop, responsibility without that tool, right? I'm just thinking about ways we can throw out solutions for people.
Yeah.
So another thing I'd recommend is journaling, because when you journal, you get to document based on how, and there's a bunch of different types of journaling. When I say journal, I simply mean putting something down that if you needed to, you could reference, but you're putting it down, you're getting it out, right? It's being expressed, because what is unexpressed can often fester, even if you're not aware of it. It then drops down to your subconscious and then your unconscious, or whatever. What's in your unconscious, by expressing what you feel in that moment, can bring those things further to the surface that give you additional clarity. And I think especially as most people often, as I've observed and relate to, or not relate to, but, have to deal with, most people move off of their emotions. Like that is damn near the only thing they move off of. If it feels good, they do it. If it doesn't, they don't. You know what I mean? There's none of that, okay, well, I don't want to do this and I don't like doing this, but I need to do this, so I will. You know what I'm saying? Or I want to do that. I'd love to do that, but I shouldn't do that because it would be the sacrifice, you know? The goal would be the sacrifice in that instance. So by journaling, it can allow you to kind of almost step into a third person of saying like, damn, well, today this boom, 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 boom happened and I kind of felt like this. And at that moment, there doesn't even need to be the analysis of, damn, why did I feel like that? But to be able to express it can show patterns. And when you see the patterns, it can show, do you take the easy route? How often do you challenge yourself? How often have you failed? You know what I mean? How often have you achieved the things that you set out to achieve? But if we don't keep any of that record down, it can be even, you know, that's another reason why we can find ourselves in the minutia of being busy and being caught up and never taking that time to really stop and be like, damn, what type of path am I really on? Like, this is what I did today. Yesterday I did that. So that means tomorrow's pretty likely the goddamn fucking, if I kept doing this in 10 years, where would I be? And is it going to be closer to your intention or further away? Or do you have any intention at all? Because if you don't, hey man, you're going to be that balloon that got released and the wind is just pushing it left and right. But you can choose where you want to go.
Feather in the wind, like literally just going wherever the world wants to take it, you know, for sure. No, I think that's interesting. I think also, you know, I think the journaling, like I said, journaling is not something I do. Everyone around me, like the 5 closest dudes around me, journal. So I might be just going counterculture on some necessity. Being rebellious. Yeah. I'm the rebel here. Okay, Hear my roar. But what I'm saying is that I think that even more important than journaling, if you have, well, we all have community. What kind of community do you have, though? Because at the end of the day, my 2020 thus far has been abundant. My 2020 has been far different than any other year. Now, I've shifted my focus and tried new shit and gone in different directions. However, one thing has remained the same. A group that started as 4 has grown to 6 before halfway through the year, and it's been probably the biggest blessing that I've ever had. Accountability that transcends every area of my life, right? That personal responsibility. Not only do I have to hold myself, you know, accountable to what I want to do, to what I say I'm going to do, but when I vocalize that with this group of people, now it's on some, you said what? And you did what? Oh, like you set a goal too high, or you didn't take action because you want to be Mr. Perfection. You want to be Mrs. Perfection. You want to, oh man, well, here's my excuse, man. I had Taco Bell 4 days in a row because I just didn't want to cook. You know,
the grocery stores were all out. Corona, man. Tarzan got it all.
Tarzan sprang from them trees, killing all the lions. It is very interesting to me to see also those that are in a situation where they're up against a wall. You talk about, I've got a friend, and I'm not going to tell you his name. I don't want to put him on blast. Maybe he'll come on the podcast one day. But he's a very good childhood friend.
Yeah.
At the start of this year, he was 363 pounds, extremely overweight.
Yeah.
For a long time, all of us, even him, used to refer to himself as Big, let's call him Mark. Big Mark. Okay? His name's not Mark, but he always used to go by Big Mark. And this year, he decided that he'd had enough. 363 pounds. In 3 months, the man has lost 60 of that. He's 303 pounds. Now, he's gone very aggressive with his exercise and his diet.
Radical action.
Yes, radical action to get that all figured out. But I commend him. His back was against the wall. He said, I'm 25. If I keep going like this for the next 10 years, I may never get out of it.
You may not make it 10 years, homie.
The blessing.
He was in denial in that thought process. You won't be here, cuz.
He was talking about he had enough. And he's willing to put himself in the public eye. He posted a picture of his weight loss journey in the first 30 days on Reddit. And all of you listening to this know what Reddit is.
Reddit savage.
Yes.
But
And he posted hey, I'm gonna hold myself publicly accountable. I will drop 160, 170 pounds by the time this is all done. Because me being 360 pounds is not beneficial for my longevity. And I want to be around for my mama. I want to be around for my sister. I want to be around for my friends who do care about me and who have tried to help me, tried to encourage me to go down this path. But I've never taken the personal responsibility for my weight. I blamed it on how I was raised. I blamed it on my dad being this. I know I can put this man's business out there, but he didn't have an easy childhood.
Yeah.
Okay? And he said, we chopped it up on the phone, a couple weeks ago. He was saying, I've always blamed other people for it. Man, these girls made me feel this way, so I just ate. My mom was there trying to put food on the table for us, but my dad did X, so I just ate. These people made fun of me, so I just ate. I was referred to as Big Mark, and because I was referred to as Big Mark, I just kept eating because I had to now be that persona, Big Mark.
He stepped into it to try to empower the scenario,
Yeah,
which is a good coping strategy.
He took the responsibility of being that persona, but went the opposite direction.
Yeah, that's not something that you necessarily want to step into like that.
No. But it was an area of comfortability because everyone knew him as that. Everyone responded to him as that. That was his identity. He embodied it.
I loves the big dude.
Yeah. Everyone like, oh, you got a problem? Big dude will handle it, But now, having some real conversations, reconnecting after like 10 years of not really chatting because we were going different ways in life.
Yeah.
And I'm super happy to hear that he's taking responsibility and is excited and knows what's ahead, right? That book Can't Hurt Me that we were talking about, David Goggins started over 300 pounds too. And he's the only person to ever be, right? He was a 37th Black Navy SEAL. And that's very important, guys. We know the stereotype. And a recruiter looked at him in the face and said he wasn't going to be able to swim. Wasn't going to be able to make it through Navy SEAL training. Right? Because black people don't swim. Okay, well, that's not true. That's not true. Maybe not everybody swims, but a lot of white people don't swim either. A lot of white people won't get in the water either. They'll stay on the boat with that beer in their hand. You know what I mean?
Let the record reflect I am not a fantastic swimmer, though.
But, it's just interesting. It's oftentimes those that are pushed up against that wall, honestly, tend to fight more than those that are sitting in the middle.
Because when you're put in a scenario where that's what sometimes baser instincts are not good, and sometimes they're the things that keep you alive. And the self-control is the decision to sometimes let yourself lose control, right? It's to let yourself jump so far down a rabbit hole because you know that the only way to get back from the pole that you were on is to pull it the other direction as drastically as humanly possible to pull you out of that. But when it's all coming from a place of self-control, it is all a choice rather than something that just happened.
It's not happenstance.
He didn't just lose 60 pounds. It didn't just happen because if he did, it would have been cool, but could he keep it going? But he took agency in relation to it. And at some point, he had to stop for a second long enough, whether that long enough was a 5-minute phone call or it was over the course of years of little thoughts. This day, a few weeks past, another little thought. Regardless, he took the time to take that self-reflection, which in my opinion is really, one of the bigger components of simply doing the journaling, right? But meditating, whatever, it's different for different people, right? But he took that time to say, you know what? I need an audit. He audited himself and realized this isn't getting me closer to what I want out of life. And for the time that he wanted to be the big guy, guess what he did? He stayed the big guy. But as soon as he decided, like, this really is not what I want for my future, he took that action. And I do think that for different people, there can be a lag time between the realization and the action. But usually the action doesn't come until the realization, But to take yourself from a scenario that's so far from your ideal and then figure out how you can get there is commendable, it's tremendous, and we all have the power and the ability to do that, whether that's in your love life, whether that's in your friendships, whether that's with your family, whether that's with, like, seriously, and I'm not going to throw it all out there, but my mother experienced, some tough things growing up. And as she went through, later in life, she never let those things be justifications for anything that didn't serve her. And she could have used plenty of things, but it never was a justification. And let me say it was never a justification. As long as I've known her, she has not allowed it to be a justification. And we all have that control, whether it's the finances, the whatever. But there has to be time to make that realization of, is it in alignment with what you want? Which is also, you need to have an idea of what you want. If you don't know what you want, do you know what you don't want? Start there. But
it's often easier.
It's often easier because then you can kind of say, all right, well, I don't want those things. So then if you're avoiding those things, you're automatically closer to what it is that you do want, because you're not experiencing the things that you have very much declared, I do not want as a part of my life. And I definitely think that'll be something that would be good to jump down, is, creating your ideal life, your perfect day, as Father Doug speaks about,
Jordan Peterson speaks about that a lot. That perfect day. What is your ideal day?
Yeah.
A couple books that Father Doug and has talked about. And I don't know we'll figure out the references for it, because I have no idea what those books are.
We'll add those in the links.
Looking at creating order in the chaos.
Yeah.
Right. In the chaos of life.
Yeah.
Life's still gonna keep moving.
There's always gonna be chaos.
Are you gonna create order, or are you gonna make your bed?
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Are you gonna make your bed, or are you not?
Yeah. So hey, we challenge y'all. If you're not a bed maker, make your bed. Do it for 7 days in a row.
Start there.
That's personal responsibility. No one else is gonna make that bed for you. I know some of y'all like, shit, every day somebody else make my bed for me. But if it's your bed,
make that bed. I mean, it's a great place to start.
It's a great place to start. Everyone can do it. There's no excuse.
And it takes less than 2 minutes. You don't even have to go hospital corners. You don't have to go military corners. You just make the damn bed. Put your pillows where they need to be. Pull it taut. You don't have to tuck anything in. If you want to, go for it.
But let it hang if you need.
But make the damn bed. It's a first task completed. And William H. McRaven, the admiral and the University of Texas superintendent for the University of Texas system, actually has a great speech, and I would definitely recommend checking it out. It's called "Make Your Bed."
We'll add it. Is it on YouTube?
Yeah.
It'll be in. We'll put a link to it.
And it really talks about taking that first task completed. It's really just the rules for life, but it's the linguistics. It's very, very easily understood, and it's all things that each of us have the capability of doing, regardless of socioeconomic status, regardless of color of skin, regardless of your current health. Has nothing to do with any of that. Has to do with things that if you are a human being, able to intellectually operate as a human being, you can do. It's a great place to start. So I am super thankful that y'all are here listening, and man, it's been a pleasure. Can't wait to chop it up some more. Thank y'all. Y'all take care.